Present. So I'm going to talk about some changes to the apple carbohydrate thinning model that were introduced last year. I'm not going to tell you all about the carbohydrate thinning model. Hopefully some of you have used that, but basically what it does is help you time your chemical thinning sprays, not your bloom chemical thinning spray, and not necessarily your petal fall thinning spray. It doesn't work as well at those timings, but at your 10 to 12 millimeter thinning spray. But the model was revamped in 2019 by Terrence Robinson and the crew at Cornell. And I wanted to highlight what the changes were to the model because I think it makes it significantly better and more interesting. So I call that the version 2019. Now, this is available on NEWA, and we have, I think, 31 active farm weather stations on NEWA now in Massachusetts. So we have quite a few. Anyways, if you go to crop management and choose the drop down Apple CHO thinning version 2019, that'll get you there. But what I wanted to say, unlike the disease models and stuff, the carbohydrate thinning model, even if you don't have a NEWA station on your farm, it's probably pretty applicable because it really takes into account just sunlight, and temperature. And those variables are probably not going to differ that much if you choose a location that's fairly close to you. Now, you don't want to use one in the Berkshires if you're down in the Cape or Southeast Mass, obviously, but if you choose one close to you. So even if you don't have a NEWA station in Rhode Island, you're probably out of luck. You can use it if you get my drift. So anyways, after you choose that, and you, on the left there, you can see you choose your state when you get into it and choose your station, and then you hit continue. So the first change to the the apple carbohydrate model is that in the past you didn't have to do this step, but now it's going to ask you to input the percent of flowering spurs before running the model. There's 4 choices, and basically it runs from, you know, big snowball bloom to no bloom. You need to also put green tip date and bloom dates. So it kind of looks like this. You can see the green tip date you have to put in. You have to put your bloom date in, your start of bloom, or actually it probably should be closer to full bloom. I might adjust this a little bit. I think here in Belchertown, max are going to be full bloom tomorrow. And then you put your percent of flowering spurs. Now, we generally have a pretty good bloom here, so I chose, for this example, 76 to 100%. I chose not to go live because it's harder to see on your screen. Anyways, after you do that, you hit calculate. So that's the first thing, is this percent flowering of spurs. It's a change. The second change, that after many years of research that Robinson et al. Did out at Cornell, they realized that after a certain degree day accumulation, base 39 degrees, simple high-low average, I believe, from bloom at about 202 to 250 degree days seemed to give the best thinning results. Now, you may be able to guess when that timing is. I can tell you when it is, but typically that was when the fruits were from 8 to 12 millimeters in diameter. And just after these like 20 years of research trials and stuff, they discovered that this 200 to 250 degree days, base 39 degrees from bloom, was the sweet spot. So now after you click the calculate button, oh, Siri thinks I'm listening to her. She's listening to me. After you click the calculate button, you'll get this kind of output. And you can see that it gives you a column now with accumulated 4 degrees centigrade degree days. That's 39. Since bloom, it actually starts them at green tip, but that's irrelevant. This is, I cut this off here just to show you the current state we're in. So from bloom, which is 512, it starts accumulating those degree days, and it's showing me, this is actually projected based on the forecast, we'll be at 71 of those degree days on May 20th. So that tells you we won't even be close to that optimum thinning stage. However, I was on a meeting this afternoon with Terrence et al., and they suggested that the optimum timing for a petal fall thinner spray was at about 100 to 120 degree days. So this is suggesting we probably won't even be at petal fall in a week, at least 100% petal fall, ready for that petal fall thinning spray. But if you watch this now, remember that when you go back and choose your site, you can see maybe at about 100 to 120 degree days when we're at petal fall, that would be the ideal time to put your petal fall thinner on. Okay, the number 3 change, calculation of the thinning index, AKA the carbohydrate balance, is expanded to 7 days, 2 days before the day that you run the model and 4 days after. It used to only be 4 or 5 days. So they've expanded the number of days where they calculate this average daily balance. And that is this column right here, the 7-day average. And that's really the column that you want to look at when trying to decide what your carbohydrate status is. If it's positive, don't even probably bother to go out and try and put any thinning sprays on. You won't get much results. If it's negative, and not just negative, but particularly negative, like up to minus 30 or minus 40, that's the time when you're probably going to get pretty good thinning results. So you can kind of see right now, and Dwayne, I agree with you. This whole thing is probably not terribly worthwhile, not worthwhile at all during this early stage. It becomes more important as the fruit reach 8, 9, 10, and you're kind of putting on that post-petal fall thinning spray. But anyways, it's this running average that they've increased it to 7 days over the 4 to 5 days it was previously. And again, you can see this other one, the accumulated degree days. And finally, Liz, despite what you say about colors, maybe you're colorblind, I don't know. I like colors. I like to look quick and say, well, you know, what's going on here without having to look at a lot of numbers and think about it too much. So they've added these color codes to the output of the models. When red equals a high risk of overthinning, yellow equals caution, possible overthinning, green expect good thinning, or I think you expect good thinning if you give it a good dose of thinner, and blue equals little thinning expected. So you can see right here, even though again, like I said, at this time of the year, it's not particularly useful, but you can kind of see it says green. You can maybe expect good thinning, but if you're going to expect good thinning, you've got to increase your chemical thinning rate by 30%. So I'm not really, I almost think like, orange should be good thinning. Green is like good if you really sock it to them. This, if you haven't looked at the model, this is kind of your daily, a chart of your daily 7-day average balance. And you notice we're out here at, what are we, about May 14th? And right now it's pretty much saying the trees are in pretty good shape. Hasn't been, remember, the trees go under carbohydrate stress when it's cloudy and warm. When it's cool and relatively sunny, there's no stress on the trees, okay? So it's kind of, you're seeing that here. It's been fairly cool. Maybe we've had a day or two of sunny weather. It's kind of hard to believe. What's interesting though is looking forward, we're kind of seeing this carbohydrate balance going down. Maybe by the time, and don't forget, this forecast can change. Don't take this as gospel because it can certainly change. You got to keep checking back with this daily. But I want to say that I think this year where thinning is going to be challenging, especially where you've had frost, that looking at NEWA and the carbohydrate thinning model should really help you decide when in particular to apply a thinning spray. And if you're going to apply a thinning spray, say it becomes 8 to 10 millimeters, it will suggest you either, increase your rate or decrease your rate. I would be careful this year about negative balances that go too low. But if you get down to, minus 20, minus 30, minus 40, that's a good time to put a thinning spray on at a standard chemical thinning rate and expect relatively good efficacy. So I see it's almost 7. I think that's the last slide I have. I'm not going to do a live demo because it's getting late. Anybody can go on NEWA and poke around there a little bit and see what their results are. And feel free to let me know if there are any questions.